All right, listener, get ready, because we're diving deep into the world of receptors, those tiny but mighty communicators that keep your body humming along.
And I think we've got a fun way to explore this microscopic universe today.
Yeah, you're right, we do. We're going to be playing a quiz show. It's Brain Teasers Meet Biology.
Served up with a side of aha moment.
Exactly. So get ready to flex those brain cells, listener. We've got 3 rounds of receptor-themed trivia lined up,
Culminating in our grand finale.
where a special guest will try to crack our receptor riddles. But first,
Let's warm up those synapses.
with round 1, fill in the blank receptor news.
I've got some headlines straight from the scientific journals, but with a few keywords missing.
You think you can fill in the blanks, listener?
Let's find out. Here's our first headline. Scientists discover a new type of blank receptor in cardiomyocytes that could help explain why different drugs have such varied effects on the heart.
Cardiomyocytes. Those are the cells that make up our heart muscle, right? But what kind of receptor could be so important for understanding how medications impact the heart?
Well, the missing phrase is cyclic AMP signaling. But it's not just a cyclic AMP signaling.
What do you mean?
It's all about these things called microdomains or compartments. Imagine you've got different departments within a company, say marketing and product development.
Okay, I'm following you.
They might both use similar tools like data analysis, but their goals are totally different, right? One's focused on reaching customers,
Yeah,
the other on building the best product.
right.
It's the same idea with these microdomains.
So even though the same signal might be triggered, the specific location within the cell determines the ultimate outcome.
Exactly.
So it's like a targeted delivery system within the cell itself.
Yeah.
That's wild. But why is this so important when we're talking about things like heart medications?
Well, because depending on which microdomain a drug targets, you can get wildly different effects on the heart.
Like what?
So imagine a drug that activates a cyclic AMP signaling pathway. If it hits the microdomain associated with increasing heart rate, you might see a boost in heart function.
That makes sense.
But if that same drug activates the pathway in a microdomain responsible for cell growth,
Yeah.
you could end up with unwanted heart enlargement.
So knowing which microdomain to target is crucial for developing safer and more effective heart medications.
Absolutely. It's like fine-tuning a musical instrument.
Got to hit the right notes to get the sound you want.
Exactly.
All right, listener, let that sink in for a minute. The location of a signal within a cell can drastically alter its effect. Ready for another headline?
Hit me with it.
Here we go. A new study reveals the crucial role of blank proteins in localizing protein kinase. Offering potential for targeted therapies. Fill in the blank, listener. What kind of protein is so crucial for keeping things organized within the cell?
The answer is kinase anchoring, specifically kinase anchoring proteins, or AKAPs for short.
AKAPs, okay, now those sound vaguely familiar. Didn't we talk about those in a previous deep dive? I feel like they have something to do with keeping things organized within the cell.
You're on the right track. Remember how we discussed how these proteins act like molecular scaffolding, holding different signaling molecules in close proximity?
Yeah, it's all coming back to me now.
Well, AKPs play a vital role in anchoring protein kinase to specific locations within the cell.
So it's like having a designated parking spot for protein kinase. Making sure it doesn't wander off and cause chaos in the cell.
That's one way to put it. It ensures that protein kinase A acts on the right targets at the right time, like a well-conducted orchestra playing a beautiful symphony.
I like that analogy. And how does this relate to targeted therapies?
Well, by understanding how AKPs work, we could potentially develop drugs that manipulate their activity,
Okay.
either enhancing or inhibiting the anchoring of protein kinase.
So it's like having a control knob for specific cellular processes.
Exactly. And this opens up exciting possibilities for treating diseases by fine-tuning these signaling pathways with incredible precision.
Wow, so much potential packed into these tiny proteins. All right, listener, you've conquered 2 headlines. Now it's time to put your truth-detecting skills to the test. With round 2, Bluff the Listener.
Oh, this is my favorite round.
Are you ready to separate fact from fiction in the world of receptors?
I am. I've concocted 3 receptor tales.
Oh, wow.
2 are true.
Okay.
1 is a fabrication. Can you sniff out the scientific shenanigans?
All right, listener.
Yeah.
Get those mental lie detectors primed. Story number 1. Thyroid hormone receptors are exclusively located in the cell nucleus, acting as master switches for gene expression. True or false? Take a moment to ponder that one, listener.
It sounds plausible, right?
It does.
After all, we know that thyroid hormones play a big role in regulating gene expression.
Right, but are they only found in the nucleus?
Right.
There might be more to this story than meets the eye. Okay, let's move on to story number 2.
Okay.
Glycine, the simplest of all amino acids, is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter in the spinal cord, helping to fine-tune motor control. What do you think, listener? Does that one ring true? This one feels familiar. I remember learning something about glycine in biology class. Something about it being a calming influence in the nervous system.
You're on the right track, but remember, only 2 of these stories can be true.
Right.
So let's hear the final contender.
Okay.
Mutations in the gene encoding the thyroid hormone receptor beta can lead to a condition called resistance to thyroid hormone affecting development and metabolism. True or false?
Now that one sounds pretty specific. Resistance to thyroid hormone. I've definitely heard of thyroid problems before. But is this a real condition? And are these mutations the culprit?
All right, listener, it's decision time. Which story is the cleverly crafted fib? Take a moment to weigh the evidence while we take a moment to appreciate the beauty of these molecular interactions.
All right, the suspense is killing me. Which story was the fib?
Okay. The imposter is story number 1. Thyroid hormone receptors are exclusively located in the cell nucleus, acting as master switches for gene expression. While it's true they play a starting role in the nucleus, they're not confined to it.
Wait, really? So these receptors are moonlighting in other parts of the cell. What else are they up to?
That's what's so fascinating. Emerging research suggests they might have functions outside the nucleus,
Oh, wow.
influencing cellular processes beyond just gene regulation.
So even though they're known for their nuclear power plays, they might be pulling strings behind the scenes in other cellular compartments as well. It's like a whole hidden world within our cells.
Exactly. And this highlights how much we still have to learn about these tiny but mighty communicators.
Okay, listener, how did your lie detector perform? Did you spot the fake? Either way, get ready for the grand finale where we put our special guest in the hot seat for round 3. Not my job. Please welcome the hilarious
Ziwei.
Ziwei, we are so excited to have you on the show. Big fan of your work.
Thanks for having me. I'm ready to tackle these receptor riddles, even though science isn't exactly my forte.
But no worries. Ziwei, that's what expert speaker is here for.
Okay.
To guide us through the science with clear explanations and relatable analogies.
Exactly. My mission is to make these complex concepts understandable, even for someone whose expertise lies in dissecting social dynamics rather than cellular ones.
All right, I'm game me with your best shot.
All right, expert speaker. Let's put Ziwi's scientific wit to the test. What's our first receptor riddle?
All right, Z, imagine you're crafting a viral tweet.
Okay.
If different social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, represent different cyclic AMP signaling microdomains, what would the algorithm be like?
Okay, I see where you're going with this. The algorithm is like the puppet master, deciding which content gets seen and by whom. It shapes the flow of information and determines how users interact with each other.
You're absolutely right. And in the world of cyclic AMP signaling microdomains, that algorithm is like an AKPA.
Right.
The kinase anchoring protein we talked about earlier. It determines where protein kinase A is located within the cell, ensuring that it acts on the right targets at the right time.
So the AKP is like the social media overlord shaping the landscape of cellular communication.
And just like a good algorithm can boost engagement and create viral trends, a well-functioning AKA can fine-tune cellular processes leading to specific and controlled responses. It's all about precision and control.
Ziwei, you're crushing it. Expert speaker, hit her with another riddle.
All right, Ziwei, this one's about thyroid hormone receptors. If the thyroid hormone receptor is like a trending hashtag stewed, what would the thyroid hormone itself be?
That's a good one. I'd say the thyroid hormone is like the viral tweet that launches the hashtag into the stratosphere. The tweet itself doesn't determine the trend's trajectory, but it provides the initial spark that gets everything going.
She's a natural. Expert speaker. How does that analogy hold up in the cellular world?
It's spot on. The thyroid hormone itself doesn't directly control gene expression, but it binds to the thyroid hormone receptor, activating it and initiating a cascade of events that ultimately influence gene activity.
So the receptor is like the hashtag waiting to be activated by a viral tweet, or in this case, the thyroid hormone.
Yeah.
I love it. Ziwei, are you ready for your final receptor riddle?
Bring it on. My brain is buzzing with these cellular metaphors.
Okay, if a motor neuron is like a standing comedian delivering a killer set, what role would the glycine receptor play?
Okay, let me think about this. If the comedian is firing off jokes and keeping the audience energized, The glycine receptor would be like the heckler in the back, throwing in a few well-timed interruptions to keep the comedian on their toes and prevent them from going too far.
A heckler. Interesting analogy.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that translate to the world of neurons and receptors?
It actually makes perfect sense. Glycine receptors are inhibitory receptors, meaning they help to dampen or reduce the activity of neurons. In the case of motor neurons, glycine receptors prevent overexcitation, ensuring controlled muscle movements and preventing spasms.
So the glycine receptor is like the voice of reason preventing the comedian or the motor neuron from going off the rails.
Exactly. It's all about balance and control. Just like a good heckler can add an unexpected twist to a comedy set, glycine receptors fine-tune neural activity, ensuring smooth and coordinated movements.
Ziwei, you've aced our receptor quiz show. I'm honestly impressed. You've managed to bridge the worlds of science and comedy with such wit and insight. Who knew receptors could be so entertaining?
It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about those tiny communicators working behind the scenes in our bodies. Now I can add receptor enthusiast to my resume.
We're thrilled you enjoyed the challenge, Ziwei. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. And listeners, stick around because we'll be back after a short break to wrap up our receptor roundup. And we're back. You know, I'm feeling a little smarter after that receptor-themed quiz show. Who knew receptors could be so entertaining?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we only scratched the surface. Receptors are involved in like virtually every process in your body,
Yeah,
from how you sense the world around you to how your organs function.
it's mind-boggling when you think about it. Like right now, receptors in your eyes are allowing you to read these words, and receptors in your brain are processing that information.
And receptors in your muscles are helping you sit upright. And receptors in your stomach are digesting your last meal. It's a symphony of cellular communication happening all the time.
And the more we understand about these receptors, the better equipped we'll be to develop targeted therapies for like a wide range of diseases.
Definitely. Think about it this way. If a receptor is like a lock on a door, then drugs are like keys. By designing drugs that fit specific receptor locks, we can unlock new possibilities for treating conditions like heart disease, diabetes, even neurological disorders.
It's like having a master key to the body's control panel. So listener, the next time you hear about receptors, don't just tune it out. Think about all the amazing things they're doing behind the scenes, keeping you alive and functioning.
Absolutely. And if this deep dive sparked your curiosity, there's a whole universe of fascinating receptor research out there waiting to be explored. Who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one making groundbreaking discoveries in this field.
Now that's an exciting thought. Expert speaker, any final words of wisdom for our listener before we sign off?
I'll leave you with this. Receptors might be tiny, but they have a huge impact on your health and well-being. So keep learning about them, stay curious, and never underestimate the power of these microscopic messengers.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of receptors, listener. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those brain cells buzzing.